Welcome to Anchors My Way, a podcast brought to you by in2cruising. I'm your host, Shakira, and I'm here to take you on an exciting journey through the world of cruising. Whether you're an experienced cruiser or just planning your first trip, I've got something for you. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Anchors My Way. I would like to start by introducing myself, giving you a little bit of history, my background, and how I became into cruising. So I was 11 years old when I arrived to this country from Cuba, a beautiful island in the Caribbean surrounded by water. But guess what? We knew nothing about cruises. I still remember the first time I saw a cruise. I was sitting in the backseat of my parents' car. We were going to the beach. If you're familiar with Miami, you know you have to go through this expressway called 112, which is right along the port of Miami. And we were strolling, and I remember seeing this big giant metal ship. And I was like, whoa, this is a huge boat. I had never seen a cruise in my life. I was amazed by that. I cannot express the feeling. I can tell you that I got goosebumps right there, and I was so curious and so intrigued by the beauty of these boats. I was infatuated by these magnificent boats and wanted to know all about them. I knew from the start that I wanted to get into one of them, but I was a child and my parents didn't have the financial means. So unfortunately, in my community, which is the Cuban community, we believed that these type of vacationing were rich people's experience. We didn't have the culture. We had no idea what these cost, the variety, what we could do. So that's one of my goals with this podcast, to show the Cuban community how affordable and how simple life can be aboard a cruise. So when I got married at 18, right out of high school, I got married very young. But the person I got married to was terrified of the ocean. So unfortunately, I was not able to go on that type of vacation for as long as I was married. 12 years later, I got divorced, and the idea of this magnificent pieces of steel was still in my head. I wanted to do it, but remember, I had no culture about it. So I was intrigued, but I needed to do some research and find out how exciting or how good or bad this could be. I still thought they were super expensive and super difficult. So in my mind, I wanted to have that lifestyle, but I couldn't afford it. I remember researching, and then when I gathered all together and had all the money that I was able to have together, I booked my first cruise. It was the NCL Sky. And it was just a quick getaway. It was just a weekend cruise because I wanted to try it, but it was not enough for me. I knew from the minute I got on that ship that was the lifestyle I wanted to live. And up front, I'm going to make sure that I told you that I sadly don't have any memories of that because, of course, I was not a content creator back then and I didn't back up anything. So I lost my phone with all the memories of my first love. Unfortunately, needless to say, it was a top experience and I was fascinating looking at the ship, looking up at everything, looking up close at all the details, and I loved it. When I got to the port, I was like, oh my God. When I was going to the gangway, when I do my walk, I was very nervous, but I felt goosebumps again. And that's how I knew that was a sign that I was going to be into cruising. So I went on my first cruise, the Norwegian Sky, beautiful ship. I loved it. I loved the experience. But remember, I was with my children. So at the time, I wasn't able to detail everything about the cruise. So I knew I wanted to go one more time on it. I knew I wanted to experience it again, or either that cruise ship or another one. It wasn't complete. It wasn't a complete experience. So when I left, I swore I would go to another cruise and figure it out. I didn't know when I was going to do another cruise, but I was sure that I wanted to do one. Remember, I went with my kids, so it wasn't an easy financial state back then for me to go on cruises so often, so I had to wait. So about a year later, my sister comes up and says, we should do something for my mom's 80th birthday. And I was like, yes, let's do a cruise. Automatically came up with that brilliant idea. So I knew I wanted to do a cruise. And that was the perfect opportunity to go with the family and enjoy and also book a cruise. We booked the cruise, but it was like 30 of us. So it was a lot of people. When you go with a big group of people, it's really fun. It's really,
you're with your family, you love it and all that, but you also have to take into consideration that it's very all over the place. It's not to detail ships. So after that, it was the Enchantment of the Seas. Loved it, beautiful ship, but it was a smaller ship, and everybody was like all over the place. So it was a very nice but very fast cruise. I wasn't able to enjoy it as much, right? So I wanted to do a detailed cruise experience. With so many family members, I wasn't able to do that. So I waited until the following year, 2017, is when I booked the beautiful Allure of the Seas. In 2017, she was the world's largest cruise. And boy, this opened my eyes to the world of cruising because Oasis class ships are so different. So if you're a first time cruiser, let me back up. If you're a first time cruiser, you're new at cruising, these are certain things you don't understand until you're more experienced in this type of vacation. Cruises are not all the same. They, even if they're from the same line, they're all different and unique. Cruise lines have classes, like cars have models. So ships are like different. This Oasis class ship, which is the Allure, is like the Rolls Royce of cruises. So to me, to come from a regular cruise line or a regular cruise, NCL Sky and Enchantment, I was really blown away by Allure. It really, really opened my eyes and my heart to the world of cruising. So after doing Royal Caribbean, Allure, and also wanted to experiment and do other cruise lines, unfortunately, due to my job schedule, I was not able to do anything other than weekend cruises. So I wanted to start trying other lines. I tried Bahamas Paradise Cruise Line, formerly known as Margaritaville at Sea now. I also tried another shorter cruise, an older ship from Royal Caribbean, Majesty of the Seas, very old ship, but it was also very nice. We were now cruising every 6 months. I was really happy about that. So, of course, for my birthday, March 2020, I wanted to cruise as a gift. So, we went on the Carnival of Glory. We had an amazing experience, but something awful happened. Pandemic, or COVID-19, as most of you remember it. We all we were the last ship to return to port before the shutdown. It was a total chaos all over the world, I'm sure, but mostly in the cruising industry. Like everybody, I thought at first a cruising was going to be done. I was devastated. I was finally getting the hang of them, putting them together, understanding them, and now they were gone. Now that we're finally booking 3 months and 6 months apart cruises, I had to give up my dream again. I couldn't believe that they were just not available anymore. It was really shocking for me. And that, I think, it's what really spiked my interest even more. So of course everyone was trying to do other type of traveling because we weren't going to go crazy inside the house. So we started traveling without the cruising industry being back up. We did beautiful cities. We did amazing experiences like New York. We did Vegas. We did Cancun. We did a couple of land trips. We did resorts. We did road trips to all of the west coast of Florida, the beaches, Clearwater. Actually went to a lot of nice places. But I knew I wanted to do cruising again. So once the cruise industry opened, I was like, whoa, I was excited and I was thrilled because I wanted to go back on cruising. So finally, when the cruising industry reopened back on 2021, I was ready to go. I immediately booked the Carnival Sunrise. It was an amazing experience. I was ready to resume my whole journey all over again. So I was already doing the three major cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, NCL, and Carnival. But I wanted to experiment outside the box. I wanted to do something else than those three lines. So when cruising resumed, a new adventure, it was to try a new line. And basically, it was a new line to everybody in the US because, as everybody knows, they eradicate in Europe. MSC Cruise Lines. We booked the Mirror, and that was my third love. As we all know, MSC has a different style of cruising, and we're all used to a different style of cruising. So we had a different way of showing beauty to us. I was amazed and thrilled by the ship. I was just stoned by the ship. I couldn't believe how much beauty they have in it. So I also wanted to compare lines. I kept on and I tried Princess. Caribbean Princess is also a nice ship, but their style of cruising was not all the greatest to me. Maybe because the ship was older, their technology was not as expected. So I was a little bit not 100% satisfied with the Caribbean Princess, which is okay. So I went back to MSC and I tried the Divina and loved it. So having reached my goal of cruising at least once a month or every other month, I was ready to explore every ship possible out there. But as you know, life gets in the way and life happens and I got divorced. So there was my dream going down the drain again. As we all know, finances and lifestyle have to be restored when these type of events happen. So I had to re-strategize my whole journey. And the whole time when I got separated, I needed to know what I was going to do with my life. So I got separated September 2022. I had 3 more cruises to finish the rest of the year: October, November, and December. I knew I needed to do them alone. I was brave enough and stood up for the challenge. Transitioning from a couple's cruise to a solo's cruise was one of the hardest things I've had to ever accomplish in my whole entire life. Ironically, that event created what you have today as Into Cruising, a solo fun cruiser experience that likes to discover the world one cruise at a time. Lastly, I wanted to let you know and explain the reason why I named this podcast Anchors My Way, because you'll soon discover that I'm a different type of cruiser. And I hope you stay tuned to discover it. See you on the next episode.